Hey everyone, welcome to Count Me In. I'm Adam Larson, your host. Today I'm joined by David Foster, head of corporate payment systems at US Bank, who brings over 2 decades of experience to the table. In this episode, David shares his journey from college intern to leading US Bank's payment innovation. We dive into what's really happening with real time payments, how banks develop new products, and how the latest technology, including AI, is reshaping fraud prevention and customer service. We talk about the importance of leadership and trust, both in building products and managing teams. And David reveals how he fosters a culture of joy and purpose with his team. If you're interested in the future of banking or want practical insights on managing change, you won't want to miss this conversation. Let's get started. Well, Dave, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you about the banking's perspective when it comes to working with accounting and finance team. But I wanted to start off just our conversation by just getting to know you a little bit. Maybe you can tell our audience kind of a little bit of your journey to where you got to in US Bank now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm proud to be the head of our corporate payment systems group. And the journey started as a college intern who really had no idea where the future would take me. I'm old enough to be able to say applied for a job that I saw printed in the Sunday paper for an internship, drove down to the bank and filled out a paper application in 1997. And I've been with US Bank for that entire time. And most of it has been, pardon me, in the payments and the commercial payments, B2B payments space.
Wow, that's quite a journey. It's not often that you get to talk to somebody who's kind of had their whole career in one place. What's that been like as you've seen the ups and downs of the economy and so many different things changing and still being at the same place as I'm sure policies and different things have changed throughout the years?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think the main reason that I've stayed where I've stayed is because this bank happens to have weathered those storms particularly well.
Yeah.
We've always been prudent, we've always been smart risk managers, but still allocated enough time and energy to the product side of things to be relevant. And just from a career perspective, there's always been something different to do. Being in payments
Yeah.
over the last 20 years has been a really cool place to be because there's been
Mhm.
so much transformation. There's been so much change. It's just never felt like it's gotten stale.
Yeah. Well, and payments are something that we all have to deal with, whether it's getting paid for services that you've rendered or paying out a vendor, all that stuff has to go through banks and things like real-time payments. We're seeing a lot of changes, a lot of new technology coming, but yet adoption is not necessarily as fast as you would expect. What do you think's driving that?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's like you said, there's so many more options now. You've got the Fed now and the RTP rails, and they are being used. I would just say maybe not as widely as someone might have anticipated back when this was just an idea. The use cases where they are being used are very valuable, but they're just
Hmm.
not as broad as you might have expected. Instant access to payroll is a great example of a great use case. Insurance companies having to fund pay a policyholder in the face of an emergency, right? In order to say, boy, this person's house burned down, or they were in the middle of a natural disaster. How can we disperse those funds real quickly? Where it's probably not caught on quite as much is just in the traditional business to business payment universe where a supplier rendered services to me or I bought some supplies or equipment from a supplier. That's where you just haven't seen quite as much use on the instant payment side. I think the reason why that hasn't happened is a if I'm paying an invoice, I want to hang on to my money as long as I can. Um, and when I send a real time payment or something through the FedNow rails, right, that money's gone
Hmm.
immediately. But if I send a check, I send an ACH, I use a card, the working capital benefits go away in an instant payment environment.
So then what's the value of the instant payment environment? Because what you're saying, a lot of times people are trying to hold it on as long as possible because there's
Mhm.
so many moving parts when you're running a business.
Yeah, the value really is the instantaneous nature of the payment, right? If you've got a supplier,
Hmm.
for example, who said, I won't release something to you until I know that I've been paid, and I need that thing right away in order to fix a piece of equipment or finish making something,
Yeah.
right? That then it really does have value. That's kind of an emergency. Oh my gosh, I need to pay. Interestingly, in the card space, we'll see a number of our customers fund the payment of their commercial card or their corporate card or their T&E card via an instant payment. because they want to see that, they want to have that balance availability right away. Someone's on the
Hmm.
road, a team is on a trip, and just through nobody's fault, they reach their credit limit. Like, oh my gosh, these people are all going to be stranded. A great way to make sure they're not is to use an instant payment to pay down or to fund a card transaction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to banks developing new payment products, maybe you can walk us through so we can understand from a lot of time from the business side, we don't really understand
Mhm.
how banks, kind of develop those things. Like, is it customer demand, market pressure? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that kind of go into the top of the funnel. I think the most important one is what your current customers are telling you. So
Yeah.
we try to have as many feedback points as possible. And I'll just give some examples so it makes more sense. We have a variety of different client advisory panels or boards or teams, and they represent different types of customers, right? One might be insurance companies, one might be middle market companies, maybe it's in the public sector. And at least a couple times a year, we like to get those customers together in one place. And we really spend focused time talking about what they like, what they don't like, what they wish was different. And it can be high level discussions. And it can also be like we're all logged in looking at a technology that the bank offers. And someone might say, I'd rather put my mouse here than there. And can you get me to this place in under less clicks than it takes me now? So direct feedback from customers informs a lot of it. Second, I would say is we have teams of people that are out meeting with clients on a day-to-day basis, right? That's their job. Their job is to be in their offices, listening, asking questions, probing for what's working and what's not. And then it's important internally that my team feel comfortable providing that feedback to one another, and that we have the willingness to give the feedback from what a customer has said. And also, if you're a product manager or product owner, you have to be open minded and willing to say, hey, yeah, this is my product, but someone's telling me about something they'd like to see change. So, feedback from customers through those two channels is probably the most important thing. Obviously, we're all watching what our competitors are doing, hearing from people that aren't clients. We're trying to acquire new clients, and in the process of trying to acquire them, they'll tell you and they'll help you compare and benchmark what you're doing against what else is commercially available to them. And then lastly, I would say we encourage all of our employees to just be really creative, right? And so you have to keep an eye on what's going on in the industry. We pay you to have ideas about improving the customer experience and building something. And ultimately, you have to assume some of those things that you try to build will work and they'll be adopted and customers will like them. And in some cases, they won't. But that's part of the process of product management and
Hmm.
building things out, is occasionally making a mistake or swinging and missing, and then using that to inform how to do it better next time.
What's that like from a bank's perspective when you create a product and it fails? Like, what is it like, coming back from that and kind of taking those next steps to do the next better thing? Because
Mhm.
it's probably not something that like it's more publicly available when it's in a bank.
Yeah. Um, that's a good question. I think there's two kinds of failure probably when you're thinking about product.
Okay.
One is you try to
Sure.
build something and it doesn't work the way you thought it was going to. That's probably less common than building something that you thought there was going to be a bunch of demand for and seeing it grow to the point where it's truly reached a point of critical mass. And what's it like? I think it's, if you didn't fail once in a while, that would probably mean you're not experimenting and
Hmm.
building enough, right? That's required. I think the hardest part about it, when you often see things fail, it's not that it didn't work or maybe some of your customers couldn't get there. It's just rallying the whole team around commercializing something that's
Hmm.
new and figuring out who are the people within our customers who are really going to be most interested in this. How do we communicate that to them? That's changed a lot over the years too. The way banks are communicating with the kind of customers that are listening to your podcast has gone from what used to be largely analog, like let me call you and schedule a meeting, and then we'll try to find time and you can come and sit down and I'll show you, more to how do you make these products more self-service and make them more easily accessible? How do you enable a customer to enroll and attempt to use something digitally? So a lot of what is happening when you're building a product today, you're thinking about how can we onboard the customer? How can we make this more easily accessible where it doesn't require a team of people going out to meet with a team of people on their end and doing all kinds of implementation as well?
And something I was also thinking while you were chatting about it, not only like being able to communicate properly, but maybe you can describe how you build that trust up because a lot of times, accounting and finance professionals we're more like, hey, I'm not going to necessarily jump to the newest thing. Let me see how it's working first.
Mhm.
How do you get those first few people to get in there and then, especially if it's a payment technology, if it's something's not broke, a lot of times you don't want to change it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You have to balance between you have a lot of customers who like what they currently have and you have some others who'd like to see improvement and how do you strike that balance? And we've got all kinds of user experience people and testers that work around here and it's their job to strike that balance. Sometimes you get it exactly right, sometimes you don't. I would say normally when you're building something new, you've got a core group of customers who have already said, look, if you come out with this, I'm willing to be one of the people who give it a try. I can't think
Yeah.
of an example where we were doing something meaningful with a new product or a product enhancement where the team who was building it knew exactly who the beta clients were going to be. Maybe you could do that, but I think that'd be pretty risky. You usually have some customers that that you can trust who've helped you get as far as you can and have said, Chip, we'll be the ones who give this a try and give you feedback about it when it moves on. And those are usually the clients who, the use case that you're building around or the experience you're building, is something they've been asking for a long time.
I love that. I love, having those relationships. And it's funny because as we have this conversation, we're talking about products that, a bank is offering. It's very much like talking a conversation where somebody's offering some other SaaS service or somebody's building something that somebody can use. It's all like we all kind of have that same mindset. And I love that, you guys are continuing to build relationships in trying are there these new payment methods or whatever
Mhm.
technologies, and as new technologies are coming up, are there different challenges that you're facing when you're trying to encourage the clients? I know we've talked about some of them, but are there other key challenges that you have to walk through with your team each time?
Yeah, I think so. There's the challenge in terms of the customer's adoption, and I would
Yeah.
say that is it's never just one person at a customer who's using the product. I suppose that could be the case if you're dealing only with small or medium-sized businesses, but usually it requires your customer to change and it requires teams of people, to do so. And
Yeah.
that's not easy, right? It's whether, hey, we need more people using it, or we have five people that interact with this thing that the bank offers us, and one person loves it, one person would like it to change, and one maybe doesn't care because it's the part of their job that they enjoy the least. So we have to spend a lot of time building, enduring relationships with people that we know are going to help be champions for our products and our relationships within their companies. So there's that side of it. And then there's the side of, what I think you were asking about, like internally, how do you make sure you do it differently or better each time? There's a few ways. One is, product management is a vocation for a lot of people, right? This is their job. This is what they do. So they stay in tune to the latest developments, right? We have a community, a product manager community of practice at US Bank, for example, where anyone who's working in and around payments product management gets together once a month and they talk about the products that they've launched or the enhancements they've released, what the reaction has been. They probably spend a little bit more time on what the challenges were. And you might get feedback from someone who works with an entirely different type or set of customers that they can help you. So, having that community, so to speak, at a larger company like this is very helpful.
What's it like building relationships with, accounting and finance teams within organizations, the ones that you're working directly with or these new products?
Mhm.
A lot of times banking and finance don't always speak the same language sometimes when they're talking to each
Mhm.
other. And how do you
Yeah.
bridge that gap as you're building those relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had some perfect answer. I think the way we look at it on my team is, first of all, you have to be present and available, right? If your customer needs something, you need to make sure that when they need you, you're there, right? And that means different things to different customers, right? Some people are like, I want to text my person, and that's the way I like to interact with. Some people say, nope, you need to come out here once a month and meet with me. People like email. So it's up to our relationship teams to first understand, like, how do our clients want to be treated? It's a little bit of a twist on the golden rule. It's like treat others the way you'd want to be treated, but we like to think of it as treat people the way they would like to be treated. And it's our
Mm,
relationship manager's job to understand what that customer's expectation is. And if you're present and you listen and you're reliable about following up, I mean, that's the main way that you build trust with a customer. It is relationship management. Secondly, like, your products need to be available and useful. And when it comes to technology and payments, like, you know, uptime and availability are key, right? If you're a
mm,
merchant who's trying to accept someone's credit card, you don't want your merchant processing system to be down because you literally can't transact, right? If you're a cardholder who's trying to check out of a hotel, you need that card to work so you can get home to your family. If you're a accounts payable person who's got a critical supplier on the phone saying, I need to get paid, this invoice is overdue, right? The technology has to be available. So you build credibility by making sure that the products that you have are, and especially in payments, like, extraordinarily reliable and always
mhm.
on. And you lose credibility, to be frank, when uh, you don't have that reputation.
So, talking about things like fraud, cybersecurity risks, all those things are getting more and more great.
Mhm.
And with all the new technologies, the fraudsters and the people who are hackers are keeping up with those things. How do you stay current? And are there newer trends and tactics that teams should be aware of? And like how are you guys staying
Yeah, it
up
can.
on those things?
It's a hot topic. And when we have
Yeah,
customers together, this is the one thing they ask us to talk to them about the most. In fact, last week or 2 weeks ago, we were in Savannah, Georgia with a group of customers. And I think the session in which these clients were most engaged was when we had people from our fraud teams come in and talk about this landscape. And you're
yeah.
correct in that the numbers of bad actors are increasing and not decreasing. The prevalence of technology and AI, you know, gives them theoretically more horsepower to come at you. So, first of all, we're spending a lot of time, and I think our clients are as well, training and talking to employees about their behavior, because
Hmm.
the most critical things that can go wrong will generally involve an employee who did something they weren't supposed to, fell for a phishing attack or what have you. So, training and communication are really important. We do it a lot with our own employees. We encourage our customers and
Hmm.
give them best practices for how to communicate, and train employees about how to detect and avoid fraud. And it's becoming more and more prevalent. You have deep fakes and videos, and you've probably seen some of the stories yourself, Adam, where companies have fallen victim to things because the person on the receiving end is like, I saw the CFO's face, like, and it was his voice, and it came right through, and I was looking at it, and he told me I needed to switch my our bank account for this supplier from one thing to the next. So all the employees remain the front line on
Hmm.
defending companies against cyber attacks. And banks, obviously, this is very important, and it's a topic we need to invest a lot of time, energy, money into having defenses that help protect our clients when they're interacting with our products. And fortunately, I think we do a pretty good job of it. We take it very seriously, and are doing everything we can to protect our clients from, like you said, an increasing number of threats that are unfortunately out there right now.
With all the new technology, we haven't mentioned the famous word AI, that
Mhm.
we seem to talk about every time we're talking about, new innovations, especially in the payment space. What part is AI playing in this
Yeah, it
space?
it has a big part to play, and I think it's in a number of areas. If you think about, um, you know, pro- transactions, and there's inherently a lot of them out there. So when you know learning models work best when there's a lot of data for them to look at. So if I think about it from the standpoint of someone in an accounting or accounts payable or an audit role, right? You can use AI to look at transaction history and say,
Hmm.
if a certain transaction meets these criteria, in the last 100 times a transaction had these characteristics, it ended up in this place in our GL, or it ended up being approved by someone. So I think there's the looking at large volumes of transaction data to help decision what might need to happen next. Does something require a manual approval? can the system approve it? If you think about, like corporate card expense reporting, there's a lot of AI that could go in there. Like, should someone really be coming back to their desk after a trip and looking at receipts and typing it into the system? So we're deploying AI in that part of the process. Fraud detection is a big thing that we see AI use cases around. Is like we're looking at these transactions and deciding, does it have characteristics that make it appear valid, or are there things about this that flags it as fraud? So we see it being used in a ton of different places. You'll continue to see AI become embedded more and more in products that
Hmm.
are being offered, by banks. And you also use it to augment how you service clients, right? We're not going to stop supporting clients the way we've always supported them. But if someone who is supporting a customer can have AI help them help that customer even faster than they could have before, we certainly want to make that available.
So does that change what your workforce is doing if you're like suddenly using AI to, help customers faster?
Mhm. Does it? Yeah, I think the short answer is yes, but the nuanced answer is, I think this is what everyone starts to fear. Is like, is my job at risk? And
Yeah.
we haven't seen AI replacing, U.S. bank employees. We've seen AI do things that more efficiently than someone used to do, so that person can go do something else. So I don't think the people that work here come to work every day worried that they're going to be replaced by AI. I think it seems to me they come to work more excited about learning what AI can do to help make them better. And there's this huge demand
Yeah.
from our employees to learn more about it. And they're coming to us as their employer saying, help me, give me resources, provide me support. And, we're certainly doing as much of that as we can.
I think that's amazing because if we don't empower our employees to test, to play, to get in there and try these new things, then as the market continues to change, then our teams will be left behind, and we need to keep them up to speed so that we can upskill them and keep it going.
For sure. And you have to recognize like there's different types of employees. Like
Yeah,
I'm interested in AI, but I'm not passionate about it. Maybe it's because I'm 50 years old now and I'm like not I don't know. But and so there's people like me that we as an employer have to, not let me be apathetic because it's important. And there's other people who are truly interested in this and they have real passion around it. So you also need to kind of figure out where your employees are in their
hmm,
own evolution and how they think about it and be able to match kind of their level of interest with what resources you're providing to them. And fortunately, I think we've got, a great mix of people here who are passionate about this and working on it and consider it to be, a big part of their job. And there's others who maybe don't quite feel that same passion, but we're still helping make sure that they know what's going on out there.
yeah, that's really cool. So I wanted to bring up, you do lead a large team, and when you and I were first chatting a few weeks ago, you mentioned to me how important it was to making sure that your team finds joy in their work. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to kind of bring this conversation to a close talking about that. What does that look like in practice day to day with your team at
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. It's a good question. And it's true. I think most people, no one would disagree with me when they'd say, "Hey, we want your employees to be like joyful and happy, while they're here."
Yeah.
There's a few ways that you go about it. One, you try to be mindful of whatever barriers exist that prevent employees from sort of being their best. And like part of my job is to be thinking about what those things might be. It might be a process. It might be a something they have to fill out. It might be an annoyance they have. Say, I could service my client better if we just did something differently. So we always like to say, like, ask why, and if
Yeah.
you don't know the answer, then you better keep asking because a lot of times employees get frustrated by things and they never stop to say, well, why do we even do it this way at all? Right. So we all try to be, and we try to encourage in my group, this encourage people to ask why things are right. So that it's not just someone who was here 10 years ago who designed something. They never would have thought what it was going to be like, and they probably wouldn't have wanted it to be that way 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So you have to be like proactive about identifying those things that would prevent people from being happy at work and do your best to solve them. I think also we go I think as far as we can to connect everyone's job to what success means, right? So when someone
Yeah.
comes to work every day, they kind of know what their job is, and they kind of know from talking to their manager for the most part, like what does success mean in this job. But if you can connect how, in my team happens to be around 900 people. If I can have 900 people coming and they all feel like that their job is important, and they are, to the overall objectives of the organization, like connecting each individual's work to a larger purpose, I think helps, you know, you feel proud about what you're doing. So, to get there is not easy, but it requires a lot of communication from leaders and senior leaders about what our priorities are. It requires, getting that voice of the customer, pushed as deeply into the organization as possible. People tend to be more passionate about their work when they're really aware of how it's impacting someone who's on the other side of the computer, on the other side of the transaction, or using the product. I think that helps. And also just like freeing people up when you can, to have a little bit of choice in what they do, and say, yeah, you have
Mhm.
a job, and 85% of the time you're going to be working on that, but maybe 15% of the time you're going to get to go do something that you want to do. Whether it's go
Yeah.
learn about AI or join a project team that's working on something that's more of a passion to you than you'd maybe get. So we try, we're not perfect at this, but we try to enable that kind of flexibility so that people feel more in control of their destiny or their career.
I love that. I mean, I think it's one of those things that you always hope that an organization you're working for desires and wants for you as an employee, that you're more than just a number, more than just,
Mhm.
somebody who's helping us make our bottom line better. And I think sometimes companies will say the right thing, but in actual practice, it doesn't actually get there. And I know it's a hard balance because you
Mhm.
do have to worry about the bottom line and you do have to, but in helping your people have a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
it eventually gets to that bottom line and helps that
Yeah.
too.
And it's, I mean, I'll do this thing when I'll talk to people, and I'll say, what are you working on? And then
Yeah.
I'll tell them what I'm working on, and we try to figure out a way where those two things connect. And sometimes it takes creativity, and it's sort of a 4 or 5 degrees of separation, but you can always do that with anyone. It's like, here's what I'm doing, here's what
Mhm.
you're doing. Where do those two things intersect, and like what does that intersection mean to us? It's a fun little exercise to go through, but it helps people realize that in some way within the same company or the same team or the same division of the bank, we are all interconnected and our work does intersect in meaningful ways.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I love your passion about it too, because it's not always that you can get somebody who's passionate about making sure, "Hey, I want you guys to be successful, and I want you to be joyful while
Yeah.
you're here at work and
Yeah.
connect to that purpose."
Yeah. I mean, everyone has bad days, right? I've had some,
Of
but not
course.
many. I've worked here at the same place for a long time, so the good days far outnumber the bad. And, I come to work every day with a sense like I really want to be here. I really like to do this. And, I want everyone else to feel that, while understanding, nothing, no one's going to be perfect. You are going to have some roadblocks here or there, but you can
Mhm.
find ways to get through them for sure.
Well, I appreciate you, sharing how you lead your team in that way, and I hope others find some inspiration in that, especially when leading with their own teams. I wanted to end our conversation with just one final question. Just,
Mhm.
what kind of excites you if you're to look in a crystal ball and you're like, what excites you about your technology in the banking sphere,
Mhm.
as we're heading into the next few years?
Yeah, I think the what I would say is the ongoing increasing availability for transactions to be more touchless, right? If you think about
Yeah,
whether it's any transaction you have, whether it's a consumer or business to business transaction, a card, an ACH, a check, a real time payment, there's still a lot of points where someone is in there having
yeah.
to touch something, to initiate it, to review it, to approve it, to get it, allocated to the correct GL, maybe get it put into an accounting system. I think I'm excited about seeing less friction, less manual
Yeah.
touch points, when it comes to payments and transactions, and technology being used to achieve that goal.
Well, I'm sure we'll all be seeing that in the near future because I know we're heading in that direction. And David, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It was great chatting with you today.
Thank you, Adam. It's great meeting you. Great being here.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.